The new law school employment data just came out this morning. Every law school in the country had to disclose how many of their class of 2025 graduates got a real legal job. I spent the morning reading every number, and I'm going to show you 6 things the American Bar Association is not going to mention in their press release. There's one school where a fifth of the class ended up unemployed, another school where real hiring dropped, but the headline rate went up, and I'm going to show you exactly how that trick works. There are 4 elite schools quietly paying their own graduates to inflate their rankings, and 2 top 14 law schools whose class sizes just collapsed by more than 30%. And by the time the press release drops in a couple of days, half the internet's going to be repeating a number that doesn't mean what they think it means. But you're going to know better. Let's get into it. Now, here is the number you're going to hear about 100 times this week: 87.7%. That is the share of class of 2025 law school graduates who landed a full-time long-term job that requires the JD. Last year, it was 87.1, so you'd think it was up 0.6 of a point. Sounds like things are doing better, but they're not. Look at the actual numbers. Legal jobs this year dropped by 2,200, 6.5% fewer real jobs than last year. Graduates dropped by 2,700, 7% fewer people. Fewer people got hired, that is a fact. The rate only went up because class sizes shrunk faster than the hiring fell. That's what a decline looks like when you do the math backwards. And unemployment actually got worse. 4.65% of graduates were unemployed and seeking work last year, 4.93% this year. So even with 3,000 fewer graduates chasing jobs, unemployment still rose. If hiring had just held flat, the rate would have dropped. But it didn't because hiring slipped. But the press release this week is going to say 87.7. Reuters is going to run it. Every dean's going to email it out. But you're going to know what it's really hiding. Which brings me to the school at the center of this whole story. And I promise you, nobody else is covering what I'm going to show you now. Howard University School of Law in Washington, D.C., founded in 1869. This is the law school Thurgood Marshall graduated from in 1933. For Black students in this country, Howard Law is the law school. Generations of civil rights lawyers came out of that building. Last year at Howard, they had 147 graduates. 119 got full-time, long-term, bar-required jobs. Overall employment rate, 85%. Only 9 graduates unemployed and seeking employment. Those are pretty solid numbers. But this year, with 155 graduates, only 106 got full-time, long-term bar-required jobs. So the overall rate dropped to 70%. 33 graduates unemployed, still looking for work. 33 is a 15-point collapse in 1 year at Howard. 1 in 5 of their recent graduates cannot find a legal job right now. And this is not a small school, it's Howard. The class actually grew slightly, which means you can't write it off as a bad sample. These are real people with real student loans and no job offer. Now, tuition Howard Law runs about $40,000 a year. 3 years of that plus living in DC, you're looking at about $180,000 to finish the degree. 33 graduates from the class of 2025 paid that, walked the stage, but they're at home right now refreshing their LinkedIns. I don't know exactly what broke at Howard this year. Could be a bar passage issue, could be federal hiring freezes in DC, could be the DEI rollback hitting public interest placements, probably a mix of the above. I'll do a full dedicated video on this when I know more. But everyone watching this right now needs to know that if it can happen at Howard, it could happen anywhere. Your safety school isn't necessarily safe. You want to read the data at every school every single year before you sign anything. Now, Howard isn't even the only school where the floor fell out this year. There are 4 more that I'm going to cover. I haven't heard anybody else covering this, but I found it in the data, so I'm going to share what I saw. I ran the numbers on every law school in the country with 100 or more graduates. 5 of them dropped more than 8 points on the headline rate in a single year. Howard, you already know. Here are the other 4. First, you've got number 1, Western New England University School of Law, 77% to 60%, 17 points gone in 1 year. Biggest single year rate collapse in the country. And while the rate fell, the class was shrinking down 24%, a smaller school with worse outcomes at the same time. That is a school in deep trouble. They're still recruiting for fall of 2026. Number 2, Pontifical Catholic University of Puerto Rico, their headline rate dropped from 39% to 24%, 14 point. Their bar required full-time long-term rate alone is 17%, lowest legal employment rate of any ABA accredited law school in the US. Their unemployment rate is 29%. And while the rate was collapsing, the school expanded its class by 30%. They enrolled 30% more students into the worst legal outcomes in American legal education. I searched all over for coverage, couldn't find a single article about this. Number 3, University of New Hampshire School of Law, 83% to 70%, 13-point drop. They've got a pretty respectable regional reputation, known for intellectual property law, gone in a year. Number 4, University of Toledo College of Law, 82% to 70%, 12-point drop. The class also shrunk 25%. Same pattern as Western New England, contracting school, meaning they're shrinking. They've got worse and worse outcomes over time. Those are 5 schools in the past 12 months. Again, they're Howard, Western New England, Pontifical Catholic, New Hampshire, Toledo. I'm going to bet the ABA press release this week is not going to name a single one of them. Every one of these schools will spend the next 12 months recruiting you for your seat deposit. If any of them are on your list, pull up the individual ABA disclosure before you sign anything. Now, I want to update you on 4 schools I covered on this channel the other day. I recently ran a series covering 509 reports. I talked about Cooley School of Law. I said they were running a volume play, enroll everybody, take the tuition, let the outcomes sort themselves out. And I was right, they actually doubled down. Class of 2024, 124 graduates. Class of 2025, 143. They expanded 15% in a year. Their employment rate is flat at 67%. So they're admitting more students into the same mediocre outcomes. That's the entire business model. Toledo University, this one actually kind of surprised me. Their headline rate looks stable, 81 to 79%. You'd think that was pretty good. But their unemployment rate almost tripled. 2.7% of the class of 2024 was unemployed and seeking. 7.6% in the class of 2025. Same school, same class size, 3 times the unemployment. Something broke at Toro under the hood, and the headline rate hides it. If you're looking at Toro and your admissions counselor quotes last year's rate, ask them why unemployment tripled and watch what they say. Then you've got California Western School of Law, and this one actually improved 73% up to 76%, 3-point gain. Credit where credit's due. But their unemployment rate is still 14.6%. 1 in 7 of their graduates cannot find a job, and this is their better year. So if they're calling you, asking you for the seat deposit, if they're offering you scholarship money, ask them about that 14.6%, not the discount. Then there's Vermont School of Law. When I covered them the other day, I was giving them the benefit of the doubt. They've been restructuring. I wanted to see if it was going to work. It didn't. Their headline rate dropped from 78% to 76%. Their class shrunk from 146 to 130. Both of those are in the wrong direction. They're still decent if you want to practice environmental law. They own that niche, but for general legal employment, it's not worth the investment. Out of all those 4 schools, none of them improved enough to justify the tuition. Now, if you're wondering if I've been too harsh on them, I mean, the data kind of tells the story, right? Now, I want to talk through what the top of the market is doing, the T14, because in some ways what they're doing is actually worse and more sketchy than the bottom of the market. Let's talk about Yale and Cornell. There's a category in the ABA data called school-funded positions. And it's exactly what it sounds like. Jobs where the law school itself is paying the graduate's salary. Fellowships the school invented. Postdoc gigs. Short-term placements the school created specifically to give their own graduates something to report. Now, the thing that should make you angry here is that these jobs count for the employment statistics. The ABA gives them equal weight. A Yale graduate on a Yale-funded fellowship counts exactly the same as a Yale graduate who landed a job at a real firm. And the rankings, US News, they use those numbers. So at Yale, last year, 5.1% of their graduating class was on a Yale-funded job. This year, it's 8.6%. So 1 in every 12 Yale law graduates is working a job that Yale itself is paying them to do. Stanford, 7.9%, that's 1 in 13. Cornell, last year, half of 1% of their class was in a Cornell funded job. This year, 3%, that's a 6x increase. 6 times higher in just 12 months. University of Texas went from 1.2% to 4.9%. That's 4 times higher. UCSF Law almost doubled. NYU is also up across the country. School-funded full-time, long-term bar-required jobs went up 14%, while total graduates dropped 7%. So real hiring slowed, and elite schools paid more of their own graduates out of pocket to fill the gap. And the rankings treat those jobs as identical to a law firm job. Yale's headline employment rate jumped more than 8 points this year, but a significant chunk of that is Yale writing its own graduates' checks. The school is literally inflating their own number by paying for it. And this is legal. It's disclosed in the data if you know where to look, but almost nobody does. Navigating that Excel spreadsheet on the ABA required disclosure site is not a cakewalk, but I did it so you don't have to. But I do recommend that you look into it because you're making a 6-figure bet here. And if you're picking a law school based on the headline employment rate, you're picking based on a number of the richest schools can quietly rig, which is what Yale and Cornell and others are doing. Now, the schools whose numbers are a lot cleaner are the schools that can't afford to cook the books. It's kind of funny how that works. Now, one more piece of this release that nobody's going to cover. Class sizes are in free fall at some of the best law schools in the country. Baylor Law graduated 198 students last year, only 110 this year, down 44%. Boston College went from 341 to 213, down 38%. UNLV, down 35. Seton Hall, down 34. Berkeley, 408 to 283, down 31%. And Berkeley's a T14. University of Texas, down 25%. These are not fourth-tier schools. These are top-tier schools or flagship state schools or strong regional schools. And so there is something that broke in admissions a couple of years ago that we're only seeing now in the graduating classes. And so what does all this mean for you if you're applying to law school this cycle? The class graduating the year you do is going to be one of the smallest in a decade. And that could actually help you quite a bit. It means there's less competition when you hit the job market. But there is a way it could also hurt you. Schools shrinking this fast cut their faculty. They cut clinics, they cut career services. So the resources that they promise you at the admit weekend may not be there when you graduate. So before you commit to any law school, ask the admissions office one question. Ask them, what happened to your class size and what are you cutting? If they give you corporate marketing speak instead of numbers, you've got your answer. Now, to zoom out for a second here, this week, the American Bar Association will release a press release saying that law school employment recovered. They're going to quote that 87.7% figure, but what actually happened again, 2,200 fewer legal jobs than last year. Unemployment actually went up, not down. And one of the most important HBCUs in America just sent a fifth of its class into unemployment. 5 schools collapsed by more than 8 points. Yale, Stanford, Cornell, Texas, all paying more of their own graduates to prop up their rankings, and class sizes are in free fall. The ABA is going to say everything's fine, but everything is not necessarily fine. So if you're applying to law school right now, look up the American Bar Association employment disclosure for every law school on your list. Look up the actual data. Look up the American Bar Association 509 employment summary. Read the unemployment number, the school-funded jobs number, and read the class size trend.